40 years ago, we opened our doors with one mission in mind.
We'll be right back with the top 10 songs of 1983.
To sell quality American-made vehicles at a fair price.
You have arrived.
And we've loved every minute of the ride. Celebrating 40 years of Two Rivers Ford.
Oh, my God, we made it to draft week. Happy Monday, kids. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. So happy to have you guys here for the next 3 hours. Lucas, Bert, myself, we got you until 1 o'clock, so jump in if you want to. 615-737-1045 is how you do it. So, there are so many different angles to this stuff. There's rumors flying around all over the place this weekend. Get you a little chest tightness. Is Derrick Henry getting traded to the Eagles? Oh, my God, what do I do with my Saturday? It's all right. We're going to make it. This thing is going to go down Thursday, and we can talk about the results of the first round certainly on Friday. But in the meantime, we're going to spend the rest of this week getting you ready for the 2023 NFL Draft. Football, Lucas. Football. Maybe.
Football.
Football. Except it's not football, but it's still fun.
You had to come in there and urinate on it, didn't you? Just let me enjoy the football sound, courtesy of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stu Gotts. Yes, football. Boards up says, I hate this. Tough. I hated talking about this thing for 2 months without actual football. Now at least I get something real.
Football, but not really.
But not really. That should basically, I feel like that should be my my autobiography. Football, but not really. Yes.
Please never write a book.
Football, what? I honestly, no, I would just Tony Kornheiser that thing. You know, he just took a bunch of his old columns. I think it was at the Washington Post. Took a bunch of his old sports columns, put them in a book, and called it Back for More Cash. It's genius. Genius. I'm just going to start aggregating all my blog posts, put them in a book, and try to sell it. Nobody would buy that. Anyway, as we get ready to talk about this draft, you know, we can go through prospects all week long. We're going to go through prospects all week long. We've been doing it for 2 months. Why stop now? But I do think that it's important to kind of reset and refocus, remodel, retool, rebuild, but refocus the conversation around this year's draft specific to the guy running it. This Rand Carthon's first general manager running the show. Or first year as general manager running the show. First year over this organization. First time GM. That's a lot of expectations. He's coming to a place that has seen some down times, has not really been used to that in the last 6 or 7 years, and wants to get back to more winning ways, or at least not embarrassing themselves every time they set foot on a football field, the way that it felt like last year ended up tailing off of. Rand Carthon's got the opportunity to do something that John Robinson never did in 7 years as general manager. He's going to get the opportunity, potentially, to draft a franchise quarterback. Now, we'll talk about what Jeremy Fowler of ESPN said yesterday on television about Ryan Tannehill still being available via trade. We've kind of circled around those conversations, both with Byard and Henry, Tannehill included. No restructures, no extensions, nothing tying them to the Titans or anybody else long term, which probably means that they're all three still available as we now enter draft week. But Rand Carthon might get a crack at this franchise quarterback thing, and it's a pretty rare opportunity. I honestly thought when John Robinson got that extension, what was that, February of 22, right? They extended both he and Mike Vrabel. And once they gave those two that extension, specifically John, I kind of took it as, all right, whatever happens into the future, and that was, of course, before the wheels fell off in 2022. But whatever happens, John Robinson has basically been given the green light by the organization to, at some point in his tenure, draft a quarterback, right?
More importantly, that was before the A.J. trade.
Now, that was before the A.J. trade. That's an important note by Lucas. Because A.J. didn't happen until first round of that draft.
Yeah.
Several months later.
He was a Tennessee Titan when that contract was extended.
The world was a different place. And John Robinson was going to get the opportunity to draft a franchise quarterback until he didn't, because he got canned 10 months later. So now, that's kind of fallen into the lap of Rand Carthon. And you heard what Diana Rossini said on the show on Friday, Lucas, if we could pull that up, about specifically the Titans and the quarterback draft. We've talked about them trading up potentially for number 3. We talked about them exploring various options to maneuver in this draft. So I asked Diana, what are you hearing about the quarterbacks in this draft relative to the Titans?
Well, you have to figure, if there's a quarterback that they really like, what better situation do they have than having someone that was already in their building now being a general manager with that number 3 spot? Because you got to figure the relationship's probably great, and they could probably have pretty transparent conversations about that. Not saying that would give the Titans the edge if that's what they want to do, but it certainly does not hurt. I've seen this in the past where you can connect the dots and it all makes sense. Do I think the Titans are going to be willing to go all the way up to 3? Look, again, if they see a guy if there is a quarterback, and I have not heard of one that this building is in love with.
Yeah.
As of right now, there's not one that is knocking everyone's socks off. But I could not have all the information. There could be one out there. And maybe they think this could be worth it. I just think they'd have to give up a lot, and I'm not sure if they're in a position to do that at this point. But look, I was on the show with you a year ago telling you they ain't trading A.J. Brown.
Oh, but Diana,
trading A.J. Brown.
Everybody was. That's so not on you.
On draft night, you very rarely report news, because especially a scoop like that on draft night. Like, as I'm like tweeting it, I'm thinking to myself, this is insane. I was just saying a completely different story 10 hours ago. But things happen. So look, I think we'd be crazy to think that Tennessee's not in the quarterback market. I think that is definitely something that they're talking about, they're discussing. It's just, are they going to be willing to move up to go get one?
So that's Diana Rossini. That was on Friday's show. And so Rand Carthon, clock already started on Rand Carthon in terms of scrutiny, in terms of pressure. But the decision that he makes specifically on Thursday night, the ripple effects, as they are in any NFL draft, they're going to be felt for years to come. That's a lot of responsibility to put on a first-year GM. And he's got to nail it. He's got to nail it. There is no grace period here. This is not the most, agitated of sports markets. This is not the angriest fan base. This is not the hardest media market to operate in. But there is an expectation that this is a winning franchise. Ownership just told you so back in December when they canned the guy that had 6 straight winning seasons. Not good enough. That was before they lost 7 straight. So Rand Carthon's walking in here, and he's going to have to make a quarterback decision ASAP. They damn sure better be ready for it. Because everything that we're going to be talking about for the next couple of months into this 2023 season is going to be directly correlated, as it always is, to the most important position in sports. And that's something that Rand Carthon, he spoke to it in his introductory press conference. He was asked about how tied this team is to Ryan Tannehill into the future. Now, this was in January. This was mid-January. So at the time, he had basically just walked in the door. So he answered the question about Tannehill, but then spoke to the quarterback position at large.
I don't think that's fair. At this point, we're still evaluating the roster. I am. And that's going to take further conversations with me and Mike. Ryan has been great here. He's won a lot of football games, and I look forward to us winning football games, but I still need more time, to evaluate and make those decisions. As you know, this is a quarterback-driven league, and people are hired and fired every day over that position. So I want to spend more time evaluating that position, so I'll have my own opinion, and Mike and I will confer and figure it out.
That was January, 18th, 19th? Had a couple of months since then. Combine, Senior Bowl, all the different pro days. And now it's the week of the event. Now is the time to make, not now specifically, not this very second.
If only.
What is the drama not doing it? Do you like draft week? Is just because we could see the finish line, bud?
Yeah.
Like for no other reason.
We've just been talking in circles more than I can remember in the lead up to the NFL draft.
I feel like
it was not the case last year because there's not quarterbacks last year. No. Last year's draft was not nearly as intriguing, and it was much easier to project at the top. Mel Kiper got 54% of his picks right on his last mock for the first round. Doubt that's going to happen this year. I think we've talked in circles. I don't know. When's the last time? I guess going into the 21 draft with Lance and Mac Jones and just that class. I think when
anytime you have that many quarterbacks,
Niners traded up to 3, it's for Trey Lance. Oh, but it's for Schefter's coming out saying it could be for Mac Jones, then it does end up being Trey Lance. So maybe that's recency bias by me, but it does feel like we've been talking in circles for quite some time.
By the way, how many of those guys do you know to be good? Those 5 quarterbacks that went in that 2021 first round.
So those 5, and so that's Lawrence, Fields, Wilson, Mac Jones, Trey Lance.
Yep.
I would say Trevor Lawrence and maybe Fields.
Maybe Fields.
Yeah.
As you shrug your shoulders and grimace. Bert, do you enjoy the draft? Is this something? Because I to your credit, and I don't give you credit near enough. I probably should do it more often for no other reason than morale. But you know your stuff when it comes to the NFL. You follow your team and really the league very closely. Does the draft excite you?
I feel like the draft week is the limo ride to prom, right? You're getting to sit there with all your friends, all the faces that you've gotten to know over the last year, and all your friends are there. But something is always going to go wrong. Somebody is going to puke in the limo. Somebody is going to get caught with pot on the way to the venue. Somebody is going to get too drunk. That is the week of the draft for me. Who is going to mess up?
Who's puking in the limo?
And of course, and of course, none of those things, prom age are legal, perhaps a formal in college, yeah?
Sure. But like, who is going to kiss the pretty girl? Which nerd is going to dance with somebody that you would have never seen before? That is what the draft is for me. So I'm ready to get to the dance, but I'm going to enjoy this limo ride.
I hope the Colts puke in the limo.
Me too.
The Colts, I think the Colts already did. The Colts puked at the pregame. They didn't make it out of the, somebody's parents' basement that you're pregaming before whatever event that you're going to. before you take your limo ride. Did you guys ever have anybody? Did you do the prom limo thing? Did you have anybody throw up in the limo?
We did not do prom limo.
Definitely nobody puked because my mom found the beer.
You did limo? Y'all did a limo?
We didn't do a limo per se. We did an Escalade. Like it was a very tight group. Like there wasn't a ton of kids in this thing. It was like me, my other 3 friends, and
It's
their
not
dates.
even like a stretch. It's just like an Escalade. You just gotten
Excuse
somebody's-
me, Mr. Bottle Service. Like my mama just busted all 4 cases of beer inside my car. I wasn't really worried about the daggum limo. I was more worried about where I was going to get my buzz from, bud.
You just jumped in the back of somebody's soccer vehicle, transport to and fro to
Tell
go back
your
to
soccer
prom.
mom to take us to the Dash Stadium. I'm trying to get my dance on.
Well, we will see if Indianapolis, Houston, or otherwise throws up in the limo come prom night, or I mean draft night, I guess. Speaking of hot dates, Josh Pate, put up the Pate signal. We got to talk some spring ball, Alabama, and a few other ones of interest to discuss from the weekend. So Pate will join us coming up next. Welcome back to the show.
Is there a drop, you asked me?
Here on this Monday?
You disgust me.
I can't deal with either of you on a regular basis, much less when Josh Pate of Late Kick Live, 247 Sports, CBS Sports HQ, all of your favorite CBS platforms, starts the segment off with "Don't talk for at least 2 minutes."
Can I get a little more Christine and a little bit less Buck? Thank you. Here we go, everyone. Now, wait for the Stevie reverb. Oh, how beautiful is that? Okay, you can go now.
Okay, thank you. Welcome
Just
back
don't
to the
tell me
show.
lies. Please don't tell me lies.
Is there a drop?
There are only lies, buddy. I have never been more jealous of you or your industry than this time of year.
Yeah, I bet.
Ever. And that's not something that I used to be able to say. I used to enjoy this. I used to be one of these sickos. And maybe it's just because we do it every year now, and it really doesn't change all that much.
You're talking about it being a draft sicko, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am.
So I was driving in, and I can feel pain on the radio. It's like a fifth sense, as they say. I can feel pain on the radio.
Only on the radio, though.
Yeah, my two favorite things last segment were, one, this quote from you. Quote, "I should probably give you more credit if for no other reason than morale." That was a classy quote. And the other is, we're talking about what the Titans are going to do in the first round for the 37th time in the past month, and I felt the pain, and I needed to come rectify it.
Thank you. It's not because I forgot which division Mississippi State was in the SEC. We didn't talk about that.
That did happen.
When we threw up the Pate stick. It was a slip of the tongue. It wasn't a real thing. That's not me not knowing which conference BYU is.
Which is why I was gracious, and I did not text Josh about that one, because I believe you that it was a slip of the tongue, but just know that is the act of a casual.
It was borderline an infraction.
And it pales in comparison to the Big 12 championship race involving the likes of App State this year. It pales in comparison to that.
Boise State, Big 12 favorites.
Hey, listen, we're not doing the Tennessee Geography Bee anymore. We're doing which program is in which conference at some point this summer, just to see how badly we can embarrass my college football knowledge. But that's not what Josh Pate is here to do. How much do you enjoy spring games, the conversation around them, how much is applicable, how much is not? But for the purposes of interest in the sport, what do spring games do for you?
It does a ton for me. But there's also an entertainment factor. The entertainment factor is, you know how sometimes there's this thing that's not really a problem, but because there's nothing else to talk about, people try and manufacture it into being a problem. Happens in politics all the time, happens in sports sometimes.
Did you just describe my last 3 months?
Boom. I didn't want to say it. I wanted someone else to say it.
You're
And so
very kind.
in my world, here's what that looks like. What that looks like is me literally breathes while watching a spring game. 47 people over in the corner. Stop overreacting to that spring game. I'm not, man. I'm saying I think that so-and-so showed a little bit better arm talent than I thought. Ooh, that true freshman at Alabama, that running back or that left tackle, they may have a chance to start early. Stop overreacting. So that crowd, that's the casual crowd. We don't acknowledge them anyway. And so, yes, I learn a lot in spring. I think it's very, very vital to get your eyeballs on true freshman early enrollees for the first time. It's also very important when you have new coordinators in, because even though they run a very, very bland version of whatever they're going to run, at least you get to see something. Like, I know you're going to ask me about Bama. I just watched their spring game again this morning before I came over here, and it's so obvious. Number one, they signed maybe the best class Saban's ever signed there. Multiple true freshmen are going to start for them. They have got the closest thing to Minkah Fitzpatrick I've seen them have in Caleb Downs. Got him out of Georgia, by the way. It's an underreported story. I think they're going to start a freshman at left tackle. I think they have a very, very dynamic true freshman running back they're going to start. So I watched the spring game, and I may have thought that, but when I finally get to see those guys and they just immediately pop off the screen, yeah, that's a big deal. And the other thing I would like to ask anyone out there who has a problem with spring games is, just at the baseline, what's the matter with you? And then the second thing is, what else are you supposed to be doing this time of year? Hanging out with family? Gross. Gross.
We were just exchanging stories to that effect here during the commercial break. But yes, I'm obviously watching more spring games than I ever have, just because I know we're going to talk about it. There's a lot of quarterback turnover in the SEC. There's turnover every year, but specific to the programs that we're going to talk about around the University of Tennessee, the primary actors in all of these things. it's been really interesting to me, not just to see the various players on the field. You mentioned the amount of new offensive coordinators specifically in this conference.
Yeah.
I think at last count I had 10 offensive coordinators in new roles or who have been with coaching staffs previous, who are coming back, all these different things. But the discussion around them has been fascinating because, of course, the rules are different in spring games. And, they vary from program to program, but you're looking specifically to learn at a base level about these players. Nico, for example, who I'm sure we're going to get to. I'm not looking to formulate any kind of strong opinion off Nico Iamaleava after a couple of series in the spring game, but I'm genuinely curious to look at what he looks like in terms of operation based on whatever rules they set in place for that specific event, for that specific scrimmage. And I just think that's such a missed opportunity for people who seem to care a great deal about this sport, but then immediately dismiss one of the most foundational pieces of this.
Well, so the other way to look at this is I was up at Penn State 2 weeks ago, and they let me watch all of practice. It's closed to the public. Even the local beat, they have to leave after 15 minutes. And so I had everybody in the Pennsylvania markets hitting me up, wanting me to come on shows, asking me, hey, could you share anything that you saw? Okay, so that is one spring practice that there is such a thirst and a hunger for information from because it's closed to the public. Think about how much more valuable getting to see an entire good-on-good spring game format is for the purposes of gauging a player, gauging an ability level, and yet we're gonna poo-poo the spring game, but yet we're gonna try and get every ounce of information we can out of one closed practice session where there's I would say we watched about 15 minutes of good-on-good live scrimmage action. And it was really good. And yes, there are some things you see. Yes, they use the full offense in that setting, which means you can't talk about it when you go on radio. But at the same time, the spring game, again, for the true freshman early enrollees, which most people are now, most true freshmen or transfer portal guys or junior college guys, it's the first chance you get to look at them. And sometimes with the quarterback situation, no, you may not be able to tell who's going to start. But, like Jaden Rashada was this big story about Florida and how he was and then wasn't going to go to Florida this past year. Okay, well, if you watched the Florida spring game, it was horrific. It was terrible. It was like a TV 14, TV MA level performance.
I know Lane Kiffin did.
Yeah. Yes. And his sentiments were shared by all.
Love that.
And you may think to yourself, because I found myself thinking, wow, if Jaden Rashada had been there, he'd probably be their starter. Well, then, and I don't advise this, I did it for you. You go watch the Arizona spring game, and he's not close.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. If I like to have a well-rounded view of the sport, I like to be armed with that. I don't want to be the guy saying, Rashada would have started there, because there's someone else in the room that's going to say, really, because he kind of secretly sucks at Arizona right now. He's not even close. I don't want to be that guy. That makes you look foolish. Especially if you claim to do this for a living. It makes you look foolish. And the other part of it is just the raw entertainment factor. I think Night Agent on Netflix is good right now. I do watch Succession. Outside of these things and Office reruns, I don't have anything else to watch right now. Am I going to watch, what's the show with Nick Lachey on it?
Nick Lachey? Oh,
Yeah.
Love is Blind?
Yeah, so I was at the national championship game. I'm about to do this to you. I was at the championship game, and it was so bad, I didn't even stay on the field. I went up to the Fox box, a company I don't even work for, and Leinert and Reggie Bush are in there, Klatt's in there.
Yeah.
So a bunch of guys from TV. Then all of a sudden, Nick Lachey comes into the Fox box, and I've never met him before for obvious reasons. And I just shook his hand and said, hey, Nick, how you been? As if I had known him, and we just haven't seen each other for a while. So anyway, that little story I'm telling to people back home, and they said, oh, did you ask him about Love is Blind? What about Love is Blind? And I said, the concept? They said, no, the show, Love is Blind. I'd never even heard of it at that point.
Josh Pate is here with us on 104.5 The Zone, Late Kick Live. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have not, do so immediately, because there is no such thing as the off season. Got to whisper it.
Yeah.
I don't whisper well, but either way, at Late Kick Josh is where you follow him. Yeah, I did think it was interesting that Netflix botched the whole Love is Blind thing, just because I'm interested in Netflix as a live streaming rights and sports rights, more importantly, down the line scenario. But that is a conversation that's more insight-based.
You imagine
my God.
the tweet going out, Alabama and LSU will start at 3:50 instead of 3:30?
I love how pissed off Lucas gets that the Big Ten is going to get the CBS, the SEC on CBS Music now.
It's tough.
Like, just the idea that scenario exists for any of these streamers anyway.
I work over there. Okay? the debates you're having outside of these walls pale in comparison to the internal debates. This is like insider trading information I'm giving you right now. There is consternation about the SEC on CBS theme music. Notice the key words, SEC on CBS theme music. It doesn't matter that they point out that music existed before we had the CBS deal.
No, it doesn't.
It's like it doesn't. There are a lot of things where the purpose and the identity of that thing has changed, and no longer can you just revert. But apparently they're going to. They didn't even ask my opinion.
I want to swing back to your Penn State trip here in just a little bit, speaking of opinions, because I did think that James Franklin is very, very transparent with you in ways that I don't typically associate with coaches, but there will be time for that. Let's keep it SEC just for the moment. I mentioned the amount of quarterback turnover. There's turnover on roster every year with the amount of players that exist in college football programs. But the most under-discussed or underreported storyline to emerge from these spring games, whether that's performance-related or otherwise, competition or otherwise, what has been the thing that has intrigued you most that may not be the most mainstream?
I think A&M's pretty mainstream. Within college circles, I think people are talking about Bobby Petrino, offensive coordinators. They played on a 65-yard field in the spring game, by the way. Just full day after Thanksgiving, pickup football. Just everything was there. So I won't go with that. I will say after LSU's bowl game, where they just painted the walls with Purdue's blood, Brian Kelly said in his post-game press conference, Jaden Daniels is going to be our starting quarterback. And I thought that was interesting. I disagreed with him making that announcement, even if it's true, because it rips away your ability to manufacture or foster an open quarterback battle to keep all your guys on the roster. Well, sure enough, Walker Howard transfers, and he goes to Ole Miss. And so I'm thinking, see, you could have avoided that. But then you watch him in the spring game, and Daniels is like 10 of 11. He didn't play a ton, but he looks so much more confident, poised, decision-making. Things just flow quicker. And Nussmeier, who's the backup down there, looks really good too. Like we were talking with some folks over at 24/7 this morning. He could probably start at many places in the SEC and college football, like legitimate conference championship contenders. And yet Daniels looks like the guy this year. There's going to be a lot of variance with LSU. Their Achilles heel, as Brian Kelly said, is their depth. But if they remain relatively healthy or they're not disproportionately hit in one position room, they can go to the playoff. That's how good that team is. The other one is Vandergriff at Georgia. Vandergriff, quarterback there, who is not going to start for them. Carson Beck will be the guy. He could have hopped in the portal, and he couldn't have gone to an SEC school without sitting out because of the way the rules are structured. But he could have gone elsewhere and could have ended up being a starter on a playoff contender, and he has chosen to stay at Georgia. And that's a big deal, too. It gives him great quarterback depth, but it just keeps a guy who otherwise may have gone and been a player somewhere else. I think another thing to watch, if you circle back to Bama, is the style of play there. Everyone was focused on the quarterbacks, and everyone's talking about how you're coming off a Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Bryce Young run, so you've been reconditioned to think you have to have Heisman-caliber play at quarterback there. And then you turn the game on, and they look violent on the offensive line.
Yeah.
And their tailback stable is like half a dozen deep. All those guys probably won't be there, but their secondary looks as good on paper and on film Saturday as I've seen them look in several years, which they didn't look like last year at all or the year before at all. And I just think those are the characteristics. And they got really good front seven depth. Those are the characteristics of old Nick Saban teams. And then when you couple that with the style of play you just saw Georgia incorporate in back-to-back years, I just picture Nick Saban sitting back in a room saying, hold up, if that's the way you can still win, I know how to do that better than anyone. The dude who's doing it at Georgia learned it under me. I know how to do it better than anyone. So if that's the game on. Well, I say that to say you may not need 4,000 yards from the quarterback position. You may just need pretty good arm talent and exceptional decision making. And I think they may have two of those guys, actually. I think they got two guys, and Milroe. Milroe gives you an added dimension with his legs that doesn't show up in spring games because they blow it dead. But I think that I think Bama could be really good this year and look a lot different than they have the last few years offensively.
Well, that's just, it does such a detriment, I think, and this is why, Nick Saban has lines like rat poison or whatever, because the quarterbacks throw a combined, I think, 3 interceptions between the two of them, but the headline is not the secondary. The secondary is really, really good. The secondary looks to be legitimately talented. I mean, they're always legitimately talented, but can be a problem for opposing teams this year. That's not the headline that you read when you look up most things about A-Day. It's about the quarterbacks struggling. It's about the quarterbacks throwing a combined 3 interceptions, because that's the thing that is going to garner the most attention, and it completely skews any narratives that might actually be relevant coming out of the spring game and makes them about something that really, on a list of concerns, I mean, I know Nick Saban wants more crisp performance from the quarterbacks, but like you said, Jalen Milroe can't use his legs in that game.
I want you to just think about this. Think about the Bama-Tennessee game last year. Think about Jalen Hyatt receiving for like half a mile and had several touchdowns. And DeMarco Hellams is continually the guy he's burning. DeMarco Hellams was playing out of position because Earl Little Jr., who made one of those diving interceptions on the goal line in their spring game this past year, was hurt. If I did nothing about Bama last year but change that and put Earl Little at that star position, therefore bump Christian Story to that dime position in a 6 DB rotation, who knows how different their season. They lost 2 games on the final play of the game. So who knows how different their season looks. My point there is they're supremely talented in the secondary, but this year is a year where they can play guys in the positions that they're supposed to be playing them in. And if they can, you got a top 10 draft pick at Kool-Aid McKinstry at 1 corner, Terry and Arnold his second year at 2 corner, and then you've got, like I said, the one that they think is the closest thing they've had to Minkah Fitzpatrick coming in to man one of your safety spots, along with Malachi Moore at the other, who's started for like 10 years. I just think they could be really good.
Josh Pate is here with us on 104.5 The Zone, talking a little spring ball. I want to ask him about the scenario that happened at Colorado over this week.
It was a scenario, wasn't it?
A scenario, an entanglement. I'm not sure what happened there, but we're going to ask Josh Pate about Deion Sanders' debut at Colorado on Saturday. Coming up next, and some other interesting things to emerge from college football this spring. Some rule changes as well. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson from 104.5 The Zone's morning show. Ramon, Kayla, and Will, and I am a proud participant in this year's Visionaries of the Year campaign for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I have a special friend with me now. Olivia, you are battling this as we speak, and I know that treatments, they're not easy, right? And Dare to Dream, that's a campaign that is pushing for safer treatments for younger people just like you. How old are you? 10 years old, and it's not easy going through this. Can you talk about what it's been like?
It's been just really hard with all the needles, treatment, medicine, all that.
Yeah, and this is something that you are going to win. You're going to win this battle, but we need all the help we can get to get the education out there. Our Dare to Dream campaign for, again, safer use in some of the things that are being done with the treatment. So Olivia, we always appreciate your time and we are proud of you. You are going to continue this fight, and you can always donate. Every dollar counts. Just click on that QR code at the top of Zone TV, or you can just visit the Zone's website at 1045thezone.com.
Welcome back to the show. Josh Pate is in studio. Always a fun time when we can throw up the Pate signal. What do you do with yourself during the draft time of year? Because to a lot of NFL people, that might feel like, oh, he doesn't talk about which of the 3 quarterbacks or the 5 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10 this year. What do you do with your time?
I will probably, like hop a freight train Thursday because we're going to do our show Tuesday. So
From the freight train?
Yeah, we won't have a show Thursday. That is my version of life in the fast lane. That is just hopping freight trains. That's my version. By the way, you know what's unique about this little blue bottle? For the listeners, I am sipping out of a bottle of, it's pronounced Callaway Bleu water. This is bottled in Harris County, Georgia.
So is that a souvenir from your trip home?
No, I got it at Publix. Like you can get it. You can get it here.
I thought you were trying to show me something that was like, of cultural significance to Harris County, Georgia.
It is very much of cultural significance to Harris County, as is the episode of To Catch a Predator that we had in Harris County. But
just the one, though. Everybody talks about it.
We were wise to it after that. Just the one.
Fool me once.
They fooled many once. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh,
it's still a sore subject in Harris County. They got us. They cut us. They cut our knees out from under the community. You know how long it takes to come back from To Catch a Predator doing an episode in your county?
Well, especially just a small town, and I don't know what the general population of Harris County, Georgia is off the top of my head. I'm gonna assume it's a smaller place.
Not a lot.
So that's just by percentage. You're not dealing with a great hit right there with just the one episode of To Catch a Predator. Speaking of bad optics. You like that transition
time.
You could have gone a few different ways with that transition. And speaking of,
yeah,
you went with the right one.
I thought so too. Thank you for your words of encouragement back there. What am I to make of players, and specifically a wide receiver, Montana, and forgive me, Montana, if I butcher this, but Lamonius Craig? Montana Lamonius Craig, the former Colorado wide receiver now, who balls out in their spring game on Saturday and enters the transfer portal on Sunday. What is this new atmosphere that we have created for ourselves in the world that is college football?
Yeah, we didn't create it. I abstained from this.
Fair.
You people created it. I looked at him in the spring game, and I said, wow, that's a piece of what could be a very, very improved offense. And then someone taps you on the shoulder and says, well, nuh-uh, because he's in the portal now. What was funny is Shedeur Sanders, who's the quarterback out there's Deion's son, he put the kid in his Instagram story. And then in the very next Instagram story, it's him walking around saying, hey, that guy I put in my last story, y'all need to go troll him. He's leaving. Go hit him up.
He called him crooked.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders called Montana Lamonius Craig crooked.
Not the route running. The person himself.
The route running was crisp, baby.
Yeah. So crisp that people took notice. You know what else was funny? So you've got the guy who blew up the spring game exiting when it's thought that just a bunch of people are going to be entering via the transfer portal, which they probably still will. Deion, after the spring game, he had his press conference. He said, we got to get in and out of here pretty quick. Naturally, he talked for 40 minutes. And he said a couple of times, the guys who I expected to play well played well, which loosely translates to we got a lot of dead weight on this team I still have to cut loose, and we're going to do that, which goes back to this entire blow-up we had when he took the job. And then there were those videos that came out of him talking to the team and him saying, hey, a lot of y'all aren't going to be here. You're not good enough to play here. He's just brutally honest.
I'm bringing my luggage and it's Louis.
Yeah. And we're going to bring some players in, and we're probably not going to need you. And that's very much pro sports. That's very much real world stuff. That's not supposed to be amateur athletics, right? That's what people told me. And I reminded them, hold on now. I sat back and I didn't say anything when you talked about the player empowerment era. Good for them. I didn't say anything when NIL was passed into law. Good for them. They deserve to get some money off their NIL. I didn't say anything even when you said the transfer portal should work the same for players as it does for coaches. I think that's a flawed premise. But you know what? I sat back and I said, okay, let's give those guys the freedom to move around. They're not prisoners after all. They're football players. But I just said, be careful what you wish for. So then Deion walks in and he talks to guys like they're employees instead of being college students. And everyone's up in arms. And I'm like, Did you not understand the consequences that came with the players' rights era? Do you not know what you mean when you say players should be able to move around like coaches? Because those coaches can also get fired for underperforming. Coaches get fired all the time for underperforming. Players don't get fired. You don't hear about players getting fired or cut. Sometimes it happens, but largely that's not the rule in college sports. Well, all of a sudden, if you're going to get the rights, if you're going to get the pluses, you do deal with some of the negative side effects. You're not a boy anymore. You're going to get treated like an actual employee, like a commodity, an expendable commodity. If you're okay with the plus side of it, you got to be okay with that. And we got into that on the show last night. And it's really easy because I solo host the show, so no one argues with me. It's the best of all worlds.
Must be nice. That's how it was supposed to be. And then, there's something they're not even paying attention.
You got to do the show at 8 p.m. when everyone's gone home. That's the trick.
No, I do. There's one, and I do another one, man. I just leave Robert behind the scenes the entire time, and Lucas isn't there to cut my mic off when he feels like it. It seems to be a more effective strategy. But that was why I enjoy the Deion experience so much, because at least he's not lying to me. He's not right. Churching it up. He is doing what my expectation of what the landscape of college, not just football, but athletics was going to look like now when all of these things started to come into place. But that's because it's a model I recognize. Mm-hmm. I know what that looks like.
Yeah, pro sports people haven't been taken aback by this at all. They've just said, oh, Sunday on Saturday, cool.
Love that. Big fan, but to a degree. But I do think, because I want us to circle back, and of course, Josh Pate is here with us. Late Kick Live is the show. There's also the Late Kick Extra podcast. Subscribe to the podcast feed. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to watch him live. On the Late Kick Extra trip that you did to Penn State, and you spoke with James Franklin about the landscape and specifically the mobilization of NIL at his university. He was very, very transparent with you in ways that we have not heard coaches, especially at that level, speak, even though you have come on this show and given voice to that about people like Ryan Day before and his frustrations at Ohio State about potentially the university not being in lockstep with where the football program, the biggest revenue generator athletically for them, needs to be. And that was basically James Franklin's point.
All right, so most of the time the way this works, when a program is not stepping up in NIL, or they're not giving you yeses on facility enhancements, whatever the problem is, when your boosters or your administration's dragging their feet, 99 times out of 100, the way it works with me is I am told that behind the scenes, and I am asked, hey, feel free to talk about it publicly. I need someone to fight this battle for me. I can't do it myself. It sounds like I'm whining if I do it because I make $9 million a year and no one feels sorry for a multimillionaire. Sometimes I do it. Sometimes I don't. If I think that it's legitimate, valid, and will push my needle forward, it's a selfish mentality, but that's the way it is. I will talk about it. Well, with Franklin, he said, hey, why don't you just come up here? I'll open my entire program to you. You can talk to any coach, any administrator, any player you want to. You'll watch practice for 2 days. You can do your show from my balcony outside my office. We did the show live from State College, and he is to me where you are right now, eating his dinner, just watching the show.
No.
Very surreal. That's why I'm talking about him, and he's 20 feet away
That's
eating.
Comfy.
Yeah. And he just, hey, say whatever you need to say.
That's why you're so nice.
Yeah. James Franklin, less than a god, but more than a man. More after the break. But no, he what he did was, the backstory was I had gotten some of the rumblings from up there that they were, for 2 years, fighting this big battle behind the scenes. There are some people in the old Paterno guard that want to distribute funds evenly. Hey, we got to take care of all 30 whatever sports. And then there are other people who rightly, in my opinion, say football drives the bus. Those sports exist because of the football generated revenue. So James Franklin is held to a standard on Saturday that Ryan Day is held to or Kirby Smart's held to. But on Sunday through Friday, is he being given what those guys are given? That's been my take on that. So we go up there, and I say, if I come up here, I have to have you one-on-one. And I want it to be open. I want it to be conversational. He said, I'm going to give you exactly what you want. So he comes on the show, and I ask him about that behind the scenes. He just opens up.
Put it all out there.
I talked to him off the record about it. And the reason I'm able to tell you this is because everything he told me off the record, he said on the record, on the show live. And he said, look, you cannot start a 3-year battle 2 years behind schedule. And he said, the fact is, we're getting some yeses now, but we're 2 years behind the yeses that some of these folks have gotten. And then the other thing he said, because I asked him about his name coming up for jobs, you will never hear a coach say this. He said, sometimes you got to get your name out there in those conversations to use as leverage to get what you want from your current employer. Sometimes that's the only way to do it. And also, he said, if that sounds selfish, and he's right about this, he says, if that sounds selfish, think about the players' side of it. Players need what I'm talking about as much as we do. They want to win too. They're in the program too. So ultimately, if I'm needing NIL, it's not going in my pocket. It's going in the player's pocket. It just helps me get better players. So even from a player's perspective, I said, are they bothered by the constant rumors? And he said, they benefit from it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the tool I'm using it for is to leverage to get more things for them. And then in turn, we benefit from them having more things. I had never heard a coach talk about that publicly.
It's honesty. I mean, I just think that's such a cleaner way of doing business. Anyway, it's not enough time in the segment to talk about this the way that I want to talk about it. But it's a pleasure talking draft with you.
It was great. Hey, do you have a take on what the Titans are going to do in the first round, by the way?
Find out next.
Do they have a new general manager here?
Well, I'm going to be at his press conference in an hour. Thank God. It'll be new quotes because I've been playing the same audio for 3 months.
Well, the decision he makes is going to reverberate for several years, as all first-round draft picks
Why are you
do.
stealing the thunder from my first segment? I was trying to think of a newsworthy way to open today, and that was the best that I could do. You're a jerk.
It's almost over.
Josh Pate at Late Kick Josh. Late Kick Live. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out, bud.
Yes, sir.
It is 11:04. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Pandzika. Yes, it is officially NFL Draft Week. The first round starts Thursday from Kansas City. The Titans pre-draft presser is this afternoon at 1 p.m. You can hear Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon's comments live right here on The Zone. College baseball, Tennessee swept Vanderbilt over the weekend, including a 17-1 run rule game on Saturday that improved the Vols to 8-10 in conference play. Vandy falls to 13-5. It's the 7th straight win for Tennessee over Vanderbilt. Also, bad news for Vanderbilt basketball in the transfer portal as guard Tyron Lawrence is hitting the portal with Vanderbilt's lead scorer after forward Liam Robbins went down with an injury. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour underway. Welcome in. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for spending some time with the boys and me. We're happy to have you until 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, by the way, Rand Carthon and I think Mike Vrabel are going to be hosting their pre-draft press conference because it is draft week, kids, and we are excited to be here with you to get you across the finish line this weekend. 615-737-1045. That's how you join the discussion. If you want to get in at any point, 615-737-1045 is the number. Going to get into the misinformation at this time of year. Some Derrick Henry rumors, some Ryan Tannehill rumors. We're going to play a game of fact or fiction together revolving specifically around the Titans trade rumors in just a little bit. But we have spent some time talking about cognition scores as we've worked our way through the draft process and tried to find different ways to talk about the same prospects over and over and over again. And the S2 cognition testing is I don't want to call it a new wrinkle because it's been around, but a different wrinkle that was added to the evaluation process and seems to have replaced the Wonderlic. Now, there has since been some headlines around S2 cognition testing that have been less than favorable, both for people looking to pick it apart, people asking questions about what is this, says to, now that you're having the founder go around, by the way, a Brentwood-based company. Brentwood or Franklin? I believe Brentwood. Middle Tennessee-based company, and the founder now making the rounds, having to tell people to take the leaked scores for the quarterbacks with a grain of salt. I don't remember any PR tours for the Wonderlic. Now, maybe this is just a product of social media exposure and things like that. But people are trying to pick apart the S2 cognition. I'm sure that if I'm part of C.J. Stroud's camp, for example, where you saw that Bryce Young in the leaked scores scored in the 98th percentile, and that C.J. Stroud bottomed out in the 18th percentile. Worst among any of the top quarterback prospects that we've discussed at any point throughout this draft process. So, forgive me, Lucas, I don't know the name of the founder of the S2 cognition testing in this podcast appearance that looks like it was on the Pro Football Focus platform.
Yeah, it was on PFF.
So, PFF... It's a PFF podcast, and the founder,
Brandon, is it? I don't know if it's Ally or Ally. It's Allly. So I don't want to mispronounce it. But.
Okay. Well, he is the founder of the S2 cognition testing, and he made an appearance, kind of defending his product recently.
Yeah. So just to address the quarterback thing, I would say that. We're obviously aware of scores being leaked, and we're not sure where that's coming from. But I will say that take some of those with a grain of salt.
Okay.
We have seen, hey, so and so scored the highest in the class or the highest ever, and so scored low, and it's like, yeah, that's not true. But with that being said, I will say that this class as a whole, all the guys in the discussion have scored really, really well. And if I'm if I'm a general manager, it's more likely that I'm going to utilize this tool if we love two players the same. We love their physical makeup. We love their psychological makeup. We have great interviews with them. One has a high S2, one has a modest S2. It can be a separator from that perspective. Again, I just don't see GMs in front offices saying, we don't really like this guy, but his S2 is good, so let's take him.
Right.
I mean, I would love for that. Let's do an experiment, draft nothing but high S2 guys and see what happens. But, I just don't ever see that happening, at least in football.
I love that last point by Brandon, and we'll pronounce it Ally for the time being, but the founder of the S2 cognition testing. He's saying there's no way for us to create that representative sample size because teams aren't just going to straight draft S2 players and see what happens. That's not practical. Although, did you see what Diana was reporting, that they're running basically a mock draft in Kansas City?
Like a rehearsal.
A mock draft rehearsal in Kansas City. Arian Foster was right. The league is scripted.
That is, unless they've done that, I've just never seen that.
I can't remember that being a thing.
Said the NFL is hosting a draft dress rehearsal for all 32 teams on Tuesday to make sure it goes smoothly for Thursday's opening night in Kansas City.
Well, so are they talking about on site? Or are they talking about like with GMs and coaches? I guess this is a question that we'll ask Carthon and Vrabel what to make of this dress rehearsal.
If it's to make sure things go smoothly on Thursday, then it's not 32 teams, it's 31.
Well, that is an important note in there because, of course, the tampering Dolphins do not have a first-round pick this year. Shout out to Tom Brady. Still doing damage to the AFC East, even 3 years removed from being a quarterback in that division. I do like that clarity, though, from Brandon Ally about this because I think it's good to hear it from the perspective of the person who put this thing into the marketplace. If I'm a general manager, it's more likely that I'm going to utilize this tool if we love two players the same. We love their physical makeup. We love their psychological makeup. We had great interviews with them. One has a high S2, one has a modest S2. It can be a separator from that perspective. So it has applications. Just don't make it bigger than it is.
So do we dismiss the report from Bob McGinn that C.J. Stroud scored in the 18th percentile?
I don't think you can dismiss it, but...
I mean, that's basically what Brandon is telling us to do.
No, I think Brandon is trying to give it proper context. I think that those numbers, without the context of the person who created this thing and is looking at that and being like, yeah, but that matters.
He said all these guys scored highly. All these top quarterbacks we're talking about.
You're asking Bob McGinn. And listen, if Bob is going to do the reporting on this, and Bob McGinn has been doing this very well at a very high level for a very long time, and he was the one who had the report about where these quarterbacks scored or what percentile these quarterbacks scored in their cognition testing, right? The thing that got everybody talking about C.J. Stroud potentially falling down draft boards or at least optically taking a hit. You're asking Bob McGinn to know more about the S2 cognition testing and the applications of it than the person who created it. And if the person who created it said, yeah, take it with a grain of salt, like it matters, but don't make it as extreme as you're making it. I'm going to go with the less alarmist approach because I don't know enough about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to start fires around C.J. Stroud unless I quantifiably know that there's a fire that needs to be put out around C.J. Stroud, right? That his cognitive ability is so far below somebody who is supposed to be just taking one pick in front of him that this needs to be talked about. I'm not well-versed or I'm not fully versed in the S2 cognitive testing, more so than the guy who's telling me, yeah, it's applicable, but not the way that you're trying to apply it wholesale.
I'm done trying to decide what is true and what's not. Dismiss it all. Don't want to hear it. Unless it has to do with their production.
Yeah, you can say that now that it's draft week and we don't have to do this stuff for another 3 months.
Oh, yeah, because nothing's going to come out over the next 3 days to influence what happens Thursday. No, these next 3 days may be the worst of it, as has been.
Oh, no. What do you mean? Did you not just see the weekend that the Titans had with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill? Been quiet around Ryan Tannehill for 3 months. All of a sudden, Saturday, he's available. What? It's gonna get worse for everybody in all 32 markets until such time as players are actually in place. And even then, buddy, we're not free from this because there's a scenario where Lamar continues to take so much airspace up after the draft, where the Colts, however they bumble and stumble their way through this, with Jim Irsay cosplaying as an 1800s fiefdom owner or whatever he was doing on the internet with his head of security.
But at least some clarity will come to the Lamar situation after the draft. As far as if the Colts would want to angle for Lamar. Well, if they're drafting somebody at 4, then no.
We will have more clarity. Yes.
More clarity. It's not saying a lot, but it's something.
Immediately, an advertisement on the television screen in the studio with me. Young, Richardson, Stroud, Anderson. The NFL Draft live Thursday at 7 p.m. Central. Listen, this stuff does matter. It is worth talking about. It is the biggest thing in local sports that we have right now. But I do think that there is a vacuum, or none of these things are done within a vacuum. And that is basically what Brandon Ally of S2 Cognitive Testing is trying to tell you. Don't take this without the context that it deserves. And that's coming from the guy who created the thing. 615-737-1045. Speaking of Lucas not believing anything, misinformation this time of year. In fact, Coach Dave McGinnis texted me a really interesting article from USA Today that I want to dive into. And I want to dive into it within the context of these Derrick Henry to the Eagles rumors that appeared on Saturday. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. So I'm looking at some stuff on Twitter during the commercial break. Welcome back to the show. And the NFL, on their official league account, has tweeted out a picture of the draft scene ahead of Thursday night's event in Kansas City, Missouri. It made me laugh. I scoffed.
Is it at Union Station?
No. It appears to be in this like field somewhere with the downtown of Kansas City as the backdrop. It appears to be outside like the footprint of actual downtown KC, at least the main draft stage. Now, I think to do it at Union Station would have been cool because now that you've been to Kansas City, was that your first time for Sunday Night Football this year?
Yes, that was the first time being in KC.
And it's not a bad town by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and even a few hours to kill before the game, with it being a night game, I went to Union Station. Hotel is right next door, walked around, really cool place. And every time I see a promo or something for the draft in Kansas City, it's a big picture of Union Station with the lights on it and everything.
And it would make sense to have the draft involved in some way, shape, or form, and it may well be. Some part of it may happen at Union Station, right? They had a similar setup in the last couple of drafts that they've done since Nashville. But like they tweeted a picture. It just looks like a souped up event tent.
Well, even last year, that's what it was in Vegas.
No, I know.
Just in a parking lot somewhere.
No, it wasn't even on the strip. It was in a parking lot off the strip with just a big old like prop up tent that you would get for like your, a graduation party, a high school graduation party. It just looks like a lot bigger version of that. Now, of course, I know that I'm being a little bit dismissive there, but like I went and looked up just because I don't do it often, but the Nashville NFL draft, I'm not saying anything that's controversial here. It's, in fact, quantifiably, it's the biggest, baddest, most financially impactful NFL draft in the history of that event being anywhere, hosted anywhere. New York City, Chicago, now Kansas City, Nashville, an overall economic impact of $224 million and a direct economic impact of $125 million, which was the next closest the year prior in Dallas. Nobody is as well equipped to do stuff like this as we are. And I know that the pandemic had disrupted the plans that they had for the initial NFL draft, and I'm sure the Vegas one in 2021, which would have been much grander had they stuck to the original timeline and all these different things. But, like, I got an email from the NFL about the concert series that they're trotting out in Kansas City, like Fall Out Boy's playing the draft this year. They didn't do live music at the draft before we did it, before Butch Spiriton and his group at the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation, before they kind of worked with the league, did work exhaustively with the league to make a event that was really, really unique. And I know that there is some optimism about Nashville being a recurring host for an event like this, because you can try and put it in places like Vegas and try and out-glitz and out-glamour it. That's fine, but you're just going to end up putting it in a parking lot where it's the 10th most important thing happening in Las Vegas that weekend. And you can take it to places like Kansas City, who are comparable as far as population with Nashville, and still not be as aesthetically pleasing, as fun, as good for the customer who is traveling to the event to watch something like the NFL draft. It's impossible. It's impossible to do. We should have the draft every year, even as I don't want that to happen to our traffic situation.
Yeah, I don't want that. And I agree with you. Obviously, Nashville did it best, but this doesn't look so bad to me in Kansas City.
It's just a big tent in a field.
No, okay, not really.
And what's wrong with that?
They're doing it Union Station, right?
Yeah.
I think in front of Union Station is where the stage is going to be, and then all the viewing areas get backed up to where there's that big like quad area in the World War I Museum, which is basically across from Union Station, has all sorts of lawns and large green space.
That is Union Station behind.
Yeah, that actually kind of looks good. The Front Office Sports tweeted 5 days ago, the NFL draft in Kansas City will have the largest stage and the biggest screens in league history, a structure the size of a football field.
It's a tent.
100,000 people have already registered, and the NFL estimates 300,000 total visitors.
I still can't get over that. I mean, 300. By the way, 300,000 is half of what Nashville did.
Sure,
for reference.
But it's not a tent in a field.
It's a tent
in Missouri.
47.5 million people watched that Nashville draft on TV. I've never understood that in my life. This is why, for as tired as we all get. And by the way, I know you guys get tired of exhaustive draft coverage too, to an extent, because a lot of you guys are sickos like this, and you eat, sleep, and breathe it. Some of you like it better than the actual football, which, more power to you. But the idea that even 300,000 people, and that's half of what showed up over the 3-day event in Nashville, even 300,000 people would show up to Kansas City, Missouri to watch dudes get their names read on a stage. That is insane to me. That is absolutely insane to me. It's always been crazy. Was there any point, either of you, in your lives as a football fan, a pro football fan, where you would want to attend an NFL draft?
No, it was never something I looked at as like a bucket list thing. Like, I'd love to go to a draft someday.
Bert, don't you do something specific with a friend group around the draft?
Yeah, I do, but I would also love to go to the draft. Maybe I wouldn't hang out around the podium all day, but I would like to just be around that atmosphere, especially when it was in Vegas. But yeah, every year for about probably 6 years, since back when I was in college, me and a group of my friends always get together on draft weekend and just hang out and talk about picks and get drunk. And last year we did the one chip challenge, and I
did the one chip challenge.
Oh my God! Right when the draft started, too, it was one of the worst decisions of my life because I missed not one but 2 Ravens draft picks because I was in the shower naked, drinking milk, crying, begging to God to spare my life.
And I bet that wasn't even the worst part of the one chip challenge experience, because I have to imagine the aftermath is worse than the initial contact.
Well, I have one sitting in my pantry.
You do not want to eat it. Throw it away right now.
I had because we work holidays mostly, like the Titans had a game on Christmas Eve this year, so I hung out with a bunch of buddies instead of going home to spend time with family because I had to work the next day. And like a bunch of my buddies wanted to do the one chip challenge on like Christmas Day. Like that was how we were going to hang out and spend Christmas, is just do the one chip challenge, like do something dumb like play Mario Kart and spend a day drinking or whatever. I did not do it. A bunch of my friends did. It looked immediately regrettable. Immediately. And the fact that this is something you buy at a gas station. Like, it's not something you get at a place that should sell food. This, again, reinforces my position about food at gas stations, while Bert pre-games our dinner last weekend with a gas station hot dog.
Corn dog.
Okay, very right. More calories.
Big distinction.
More bread. Not just bread, but deep-fried bread.
There you go.
The thing immediately turns your mouth like radioactive blue.
Yeah.
That can't be good for you. Whatever that thing is coated in, beyond like ghost pepper spices, the thing that makes your tongue turn blue, I don't want anything to do with the one chip.
So we were wondering about this dress rehearsal that the NFL is doing on Tuesday. Diana Rossini has sent out the script for the mock draft that will take place tomorrow for this NFL draft dress rehearsal.
No, you're kidding.
And it is great. They have assigned players for each team to pick. So you don't have the team saying like, oh, we might draft this guy. They have assigned a player to every team, and none of them are first round players. And they have not taken any of the trades into account. So they still have Chicago picking first in this dress rehearsal.
Who'd the Titans take, dude? I need it.
Oh, this is funny.
The number one pick
now
in the 2023 NFL draft dress rehearsal, the Chicago Bears select Jake Andrews, guard out of Troy. The second pick is Jeremy Banks, linebacker out of Tennessee, going to the Houston Texans.
Likely undrafted.
And he has the Titans, or he has, just the NFL has the Titans taking Kansas State wide receiver Malik Knowles.
Big sleeper.
Yeah, did not have him projected at 11th overall. So that's funny. I wonder, I guess we'll ask Carthon and Vrabel about, what goes into this process for them, but I guess that's just to like get the picks in and make sure that the picks are received cleanly. And
they have the Jets taking Cody Mauch out of North Dakota State.
He has a better chance of being a first round pick than any other name I'm reading on this list.
That's the only name. And Emmanuel Forbes is the Rams pick at 6, which the Rams are not picking at 6. Yeah, the Lions are.
Would not. So they've even incorporated. Are they incorporating trades? They have Denver with their original pick.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Did you not listen to anything I said?
He just slips off into his own mind when we start talking.
That's what I said. They wiped away it's just the initial draft order. The Bears are the number one pick in this dress rehearsal. That's why there's 32 teams, because the Dolphins are involved here.
You did make mention of that, and I didn't listen to you.
Dalton Wagner, the tackle out of Arkansas, is the Miami pick at 21. So that's That's as good as it's going to get in the first round for the Dolphins this year is a dress rehearsal.
Better chance at a first-round pick than they had.
A fake pick and a dress rehearsal is as much as they get for a first-round pick.
All right, so Diana Rossini officially reporting that the NFL is scripted. Put on your tinfoil hats. Arian Foster was right. We knew the whole time.
Agent S. Dot on YouTube says, I feel kind of bad for these guys. Like, these guys have no chance at being taken in the first round. So let's just mock this and make it a dress rehearsal. All right,
They didn't even put a borderline. They didn't even put a borderline player on there because Cody Mauch, the left tackle from North Dakota State, that guy's probably a high third, low second.
Emmanuel Forbes, he could go in the first round. He went 6 to the Rams in this fake mock.
No.
You don't want to be.
You want to make a bet? You want to make a bet? Let's make a bet right now.
That he goes in the first round?
Emmanuel Forbes, first round
Another
pick.
bet for me to not pay off?
He's not going to. Is he?
You don't. Are you kidding me? He's only missed one. The issues with the cat is that durability. He's missed one game his entire college career. Everybody says he's so rail thin that he's not going to be able to play. He has 14 interceptions, 6 of which he's returned for touchdowns. I think there's a chance he could, if there's a run, if we talk about elite players, there's a lack of elite players. So if you're looking at playmakers, if you're looking at traits, bet me right now Emmanuel Forbes is going to be a first-round pick.
What do you want to bet?
One chip challenge on air.
No.
Oh. How about a half a chip challenge?
I'll do a half.
Half of the one chip challenge?
Because that's a lot easier than me getting my face painted.
Okay,
like
That's like saying you're going to do half a mushroom. You're still going to trip. Come on, dude.
in a hypothetical situation?
Eat the chip.
So is that what we're saying? So if Emmanuel Forbes gets taken in the first round on Thursday, not in this dress rehearsal, but on Thursday, if he does get taken, Buck has to eat half a chip on the one chip challenge. And if he doesn't,
No. You're in on this.
Why am I in on this?
Because you are also disputing that Emmanuel Forbes is going to be a first-round pick.
Yep, Buck.
No, but I can
Lucas
see
has
it.
to eat the other half.
But I could see it.
We already have the chip.
We are split. There's going to be half a chip. You're going to eat it.
I don't know.
Yes.
I think Lucas has to eat the other half of the
I
chip
agree.
no matter what.
No matter what?
Yeah. Pain loves, or misery loves company.
But I don't think Emmanuel Forbes will be a first-round pick, but I could see it. The back half of this first round is a complete wild card.
That doesn't help the show at all that you can see him being a first-round pick. I don't care if you can see
Let me
Emmanuel
ride
Forbes.
the fence.
No. You're going to
Play
ride
both
the chip.
sides, so I always come out on top.
You're going to ride the dragon and apparently a mushroom trip in the middle of all this. In a different state where it's legal, of course. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. Jonathan Hernandez says, careful, the NFL will suspend you for making bets. We're not in a league facility right now. There's no 6-game suspension for me. The only reason I don't bet is because of ethical concerns. Just for the potential that somebody might accuse me of dealing in insider information that half the time,
that's
probably
why,
don't
not
have.
ethical concerns. You have no ethical concerns.
They would just pull up your reports that old dude was going to come back as offensive coordinator. And they'd be like, this guy doesn't know anything.
Yeah, that would be a tough one.
True.
That literally happened like 3 hours later. That was tough.
I think he's back.
I really did.
Something's telling me.
I was walking into the studio. It was so bad. I was walking into the studio that day. I was on the phone with somebody saying, no, it's going to be fine. And I looked at Lucas. I'm like, I guess it's going to be fine. 4 hours later, bleep. Jeremy McInturf says, you will get a euphoric high from the spice of the one chip. No, you're not trying to.
I don't think that's how it works.
I know. In fact, the only trip that you're taking is a trip to the bathroom immediately, or apparently to get naked in the shower with milk like Robert was doing.
And I love spicy food, but I have friends that also have an affinity for spicy food that said it was the worst thing that they ever put in their body.
Just the fact that I'm willing to step back up to the plate and potentially put half of that chip in my mouth should tell you how confident I am that Emmanuel Forbes is going to be a first round.
No, but your judgment can't be trusted in anything.
on anything?
In anything.
Even the thing that I
won the bet and then wanted to eat a whole raw onion on the air anyway.
I did it for the show.
Exactly.
I did it for you.
So yeah, thank you. Was it worth it?
It wasn't. I love onions, though. I can't help it.
It did not ruin onions for Bert.
Yeah, ask Lucas. He was with me at the store yesterday, and I bought like 3 different types.
Would you go grocery shopping, the two of you together?
We went to the World Market.
Yeah, you don't need to know what we do.
You went to World Market?
Yeah. Got some
What
octopus.
are the two of you doing at World Market?
Buying leeks and
Just having
rice
a Sunday
and-
fun day together. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Getting our nails done, picking up a few things.
You know, just being girls. Just girls being girls.
That's me. It's fine. Me and Slay get pedicures together.
When's the last time you and Slay got a pedicure together? He's got to think about it.
Been a couple of months, at least. 615-737-1045. Although there is going to be a show group activity, it sounds like tomorrow, not another trip to Zanies. like we had. But if you have not yet purchased your tickets before we get to the phone, 615-737-1045, our teammate Kayla Anderson doing a really, really cool event tomorrow at 3rd and Lindsley for you guys to contribute to a great cause. She's raising funds on behalf of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and that is the event. That is what the proceeds of the event are going to benefit. It's a songwriters night, but also is going to feature both sports and music. Mike Vrabel, 2 days before the NFL draft, you can participate in a Q&A session with the Titans head coach. And also there will be representatives of the Nashville Predators, Nashville SC. It sounds like Will's doing a Q&A with some of the SC players. UC Saros going to be there. Tickets are just $20, and all proceeds go to Leukemia and Lymphoma Society to fight against blood cancer. You can purchase your tickets today at 1045thezone.com. Jody in Columbia is next. Hey, Jody.
Hey, guys. Draft week, I'm excited, and I just want to hear what you and Lucas think, in your opinions, what's actually going to happen with the Titans, because I've heard so many rumors and so many things going on, but I just kind of want to hear what you guys actually think is going to happen, and I'll hang up and listen. I appreciate it.
You hear that? He wants to hear what Lucas and I think, Bert.
I know. I'll just go hang out in the corner by myself.
That's why the AI can't figure out who you are. Nobody wants to talk to you.
Yeah. Talk to the man. What do you think is going to happen? Peel the curtain back, big wizard of draft.
Hey,
Buck.
Chat GPT.
Yeah.
What should I do with Robert Walsh?
Answer his questions.
Suspend me.
Shadows.
Oh, the draft.
The draft. Just, when you forget something to say while you were falling away and just decided to spew the draft.
Answer his question.
What do I think is going to happen? I think that the Titans are going to end up taking a quarterback on Thursday. I really do.
Where?
That I can't answer for you. But I think that the signs continue to point to them being involved in the quarterback draft on Thursday night.
I'm going to answer with what I think is not going to happen, and that's the Titans pick at 11. I believe that the Titans are in the quarterback market. I also know they have the least amount of ammo.
I just think they might be able to get the quarterback at 11. That's
depends
the thing
who's
that
there at
makes
11.
me.
But I think if the Titans aren't able to trade up to 3, they're looking to trade back.
I don't think that so you are prioritizing then in that scenario a trade up to 3. Like if you were to rank them in order of places where you think they're most likely to go, you would say 3 before a trade back.
Yeah, the noise around Houston not taking a quarterback at 2, I think, adds a sense of urgency to get up to 3 when C.J. Stroud is suddenly on the table. But if they are not able to get up to 3, which, like we talked about on Friday, the teams that they are competing with for that spot have more ammo to do that, then I think they trade back. Even if it's trading back a few spots and still believing that that a quarterback may be out there for you.
Why don't we get into this later? Because he's asking about, the caller asked about rumors and whatnot, and there were some big-time rumors around both Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. We'll do that in the final hour. But coming up next, the head coach of the Tennessee Baseballs, Tony Vitello, a big series for Tennessee over the weekend, and the skipper going to join us coming up next. Big weekend of college baseball here in the state of Tennessee. Number 20 Tennessee sweeping number 4 Vanderbilt over the weekend. Coming back on Friday, the Vols did 4-3 in 12 innings, and then just dominance on Saturday and Sunday. Tony Vitello, head coach of the Vols, joins us now on the show. Tony, it's good to have you back. How we living?
Yeah, good. Living well. Not as well as you're describing. It was stressful every pitch of that entire weekend, as is every SEC weekend, to be honest with you. But when you wake up Monday morning and you know you had a successful weekend, it's a great feeling.
But stuff like this doesn't just happen. Like, you guys have had a tougher time than anybody, and I'm sure including yourselves, might have envisioned throughout the course of the season. And the comments that you've made to local media in Knoxville have reflected as such, kind of trying to find a baseline. But I don't want to call it a turnaround. This is such a galvanizing point, though, for you guys, it feels like, Coach, and something that I'm sure you saw the makings of in the lead-up before the actual sweep was completed.
Yeah, you could feel the environment changing and, more importantly, improving. And I love that so many people have a higher level of interest now in our program, and some in a negative light, but that's fine. At least there's interest. But you can only harp on the theme, expectations, and outside noise and all that so long. Eventually, you guys, when I say you guys, our players and our coaches included, you just got to go out and play, and you got to show that you are getting better and things like that. But one thing that contributed, I think, to this weekend and hopefully the rest of the season is, I can't cook worth of crap, but you don't take the chicken out of the oven until it's ready. And I don't know that we've even peaked yet. We're still kind of, warming up or, finding our personal groove for the roster that's this season. And I didn't know we were ranked 20. I don't look at those rankings. But I said to everybody that I know closely, this team should have been ranked about 15th to 20, even just top 25 to start the year. And that doesn't mean I don't think we can't do great things. I just think when we lose as much as we did, and I know what we have and we don't have, on paper to say we're number 2 right out of the gate, I think was one of the battles that our guys have been fighting up into this point.
Well, it's the idea of chasing as opposed to being the ones being chased. And obviously, you mentioned the expectations. You guys, there is no question as a program, and it's a credit to the work that you and the athletes and, of course, the coaching staff have done, and everybody who has supported your program as a result. It's really elevated the level of scrutiny, not just on you guys, but I think on the sport as a whole. You've made it a lot of fun to pay attention to college baseball. But, I mean, to manage the expectations of internally, when you see those things like coming out the gates as the number 2 team in the country, when you understand that, okay, that's not necessarily reflective of where we are right now or the work that we're going to have to continue to do throughout the course of the season to kind of get to the place where we think we need to be.
Yeah, no doubt. And one thing we said as a group to our players early in the year was, we're not saying you cannot become that group, but right now, trust in us. We see what we got. We've got a lot of room to grow. We got areas we got to improve on. And then also, as coaches, and hey, blame us if we're too slow to do it, but we got to figure out who can do what and who can't. And the only way you do that is if you play games and you have ups and downs. And last year we knew we didn't need to mess with the lineup because the downs just didn't happen that often. You say that humbly, but it was an abnormal season. And, this season, yeah, you kind of want to be the hunter as opposed to the hunted, but, there can be 2 hunters in one matchup for sure. And I think one thing, because last year's group and the group before too was such a loud group with personality, and there was a lot of things that happened organically, or maybe even, maybe I created a couple messes on my own. The bottom line is they're there. So everywhere we go, and again, I say this humbly, but the numbers prove it, everywhere we go is a new sellout crowd for where we're on the road, or a team that comes in like Tennessee Tech is looking to make their season, by beating our club, and not just beating them, but, kind of rubbing it in, because our team has fairly or unfairly been portrayed as the group that's going to rub it in or flip the bat if they hit a home run or whatever it might be.
The talking heads, the media vultures like me, Tony, we love that stuff. that's
well, it
that's
gives
the
you
thing
something
that
to
gets
talk
me
about.
up, you know what I'm saying?
And that's why our conference is so great, because there is so much chatter around it.
No question. Tony Vitello here with us on 104.5. So obviously a tremendous amount of respect between not just you and Tim Corbin, but the Tennessee program and the Vanderbilt program based on how much they've also been able to accomplish across many, many years of success. This is the latest sweep for you guys. This is 10-6 for you specifically, Tony, against Vandy as a program. I don't know how much to make of that sample size and try to expand it to give it a higher meaning than it otherwise might have, but I do think that is a notable figure for you guys to continue to have that level of success against a program that you know is at a high level.
Yeah, well, you want to do well in your division, obviously well in the conference as a whole, but the division carries a little bit more weight. And the one thing you're going to have to embrace, no matter who you are, I mean, you could be Florida has done just as much as any of these teams too. They're going to get beat up every now and then, and they're also going to beat others up. So I think it's important to keep perspective with all that. And yeah, anyone who's been doing it long in this league, whether it be a coaching staff or just a program in general that kind of keeps a long range of success, you don't have to bow down to them, but you certainly have to respect it because it's a crazy world we're living in where a 15-15 season is a great one in our conference.
He's Tony Vitello, head coach of the Tennessee baseball team. Game coming up this Tuesday, as a matter of fact, tomorrow night at 5:30 Central Time at Lindsey Nelson against Bellarmine, and the sweep of Vanderbilt this past weekend. Tony, great to chat, and thanks for making some time. I know you're busy.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have fun over in that city. We'll be laying low over here in Knoxville.
Yeah, I bet. Tony Vitello there with us on 104.5 The Zone. I like that they don't lay low. I don't want them to lay low, but I get why you have to temper expectations. It's tough to maintain that, especially when you're as loud and as visible and as brash as last year's Tennessee squad was. I mean, what was the first thing that was brought up, Lucas, before there was any kind of actual analysis about, well, is it the pitching? Is it just the bat's not connecting the way that they were last season? What is the roster turnover?
Karma?
Impacting. Yeah, karma. Karma's the first thing that was lobbed, at least to me, when we started talking about Tennessee baseball struggles prior to the Vandy sweep, coming off the Arkansas series. What was the first thing that was given to me as analysis from people that listening? Oh, karma.
It's interesting to hear him talk about the preseason ranking, saying, I thought we should have been maybe top 15 or 20. They were a top 3 team in the country to start the season.
It's why I think I like talking to Vitello so much. And it's not like I don't know that we've ever had Tim Corbin on the radio show. And I would love the opportunity to speak to Tim. It just, I don't necessarily know that it's worked out based on our schedules or his schedule or something in between. But I appreciate Vitello because he operates publicly with that level of transparency. That's what Josh Pate was talking about earlier with James Franklin. He's just being honest about, getting his name out there every once in a while to try and drum up some additional pressure on the organization or the program that's currently employing him and explaining that to the players. Hey, you guys are going to see some stuff on social media. You're going to hear some stuff out there. I promise you, I'm doing it to try and benefit us as a whole in the long run. Now, you're operating with a degree of trust there, but that transparency, I think from coaches, where it's been so rare before, I think it does earn them a great degree of respect and the benefit of the doubt when it comes to this stuff.
So that's 7 straight wins for Tennessee over Vanderbilt and back-to-back sweeps now for Tony Vitello. He is now 10-7 against Tim Corbin.
Did I say 10-6 earlier?
Did you? I wasn't listening. But I think that weekend series was indeed the defibrillator that Tennessee needed.
Really? Are you proud of yourself because you nailed it? Full circle. Again, an inside joke that maybe 5 people listening to the radio show in that particular moment got. Anyway. Rumors around the Tennessee Titans. Draft week has catalyzed them. We're going to talk about what was being, quote-unquote, reported around Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill coming up next.
It is 12:03. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. It is officially NFL Draft Week. The first round starts Thursday from Kansas City. The Titans will hold their pre-draft presser in about an hour, 1 p.m. from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. You can hear Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon's comments live right here on The Zone. Transfer portal news for Vanderbilt basketball as guard Tyron Lawrence is hitting the portal. Lawrence took on a much larger role in the back half of last season and took over as Vanderbilt's lead scorer after the injury to forward Liam Robbins. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour already here on this Monday. Thanks for hanging out with us if you've been kicking it for the first two. Home stretch for us, and then we're going to get you ready, or I'm going to run over and do some reporting for once. It feels like a while since I've been able to do a live press conference at the Titans practice facility, but at 1 o'clock today, Rand Carthon and I think Mike Vrabel going to meet with the media, so we'll be able to report back from that. Blaine and Mickey will carry that live for you around 1 o'clock. In the meantime, we got some misinformation to dispel around the local professional football team, and we'd be happy to take your final or your phone calls in this final hour for us. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. So Saturday morning, what were you guys doing Saturday morning about 8:30 a.m.? Were you preparing for, you weren't doing a soccer broadcast, I know, Lucas. I don't know where Bert was out in the wild. Apparently, you might have been grocery shopping together. I don't know what you guys are doing in your spare time.
That's on Sundays.
That makes me mad.
I wasn't
doing anything. Nobody asked me to go grocery shopping.
I think I was making breakfast.
I've seen the groceries in your house. To say that I would go grocery shopping with you?
Someone needs to go grocery shopping and hold your hand through the process. I feel like you don't know how to go grocery shopping.
You need a meet now.
That honestly is true. I buy things like one at a time as needed. Like I think 1/5 of my refrigerator space is occupied. I'm probably just wasting money on having a full-size refrigerator in my house.
I will spend $300 to $400 at the grocery store on any given trip. Just because then I don't want to have to go back for like weeks on end.
No, well, see, my problem is I'll spend, $20 to $30 at the farmer's market getting something that I might want to snack on at some point during the week, and then spend $300 to $400 a week on Uber Eats.
Nah, you guys are doing it all wrong. Aldi has this great new function called Split. You can just split it. Every time I go to check out, it's like, do you just want to pay, or would you like to split your payment? So then I just split it in half and pay half and then leave.
Okay. One of these times you're going to say something on air that is legally questionable, and there are actually going to be repercussions.
Well, I would have to be telling the truth for there to be repercussions. So, this thing really happened that I'm saying.
Anyway, at about 8:30 in the morning, there was a tweet, and Robert, I was very proud of myself for nailing the name last night. I don't have that same degree of confidence
give it
today.
to us. Say it.
He's been on the show.
Akbar Bajabiamila.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
That's it.
So he's a former NFL defensive back. We used to be represented. The reason why I was dispelling some of this information is because we used to have the same agency. Akbar used to be represented by the same people that I'm represented by, but he has since switched his representation to Creative Artists Agency. You've heard me bring that up before because they represent damn near every athlete that you know. And Derrick Henry was one of these for a period of time. So anyway, Akbar tweets out in fact, it was late Friday night. I didn't see the tweet until Saturday morning. He was saying that Derrick Henry was going to be traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. There was no mention of trade compensation. There was no per sources. It was just a tweet with a follow-up by somebody disputing his reporting.
This is my favorite part.
It says, so the original tweet is breaking. Move out the way. Derrick Henry, and then tags Derrick, is headed to the Eagles.
No, he's not.
Which would be the Jonathan Jones response here. And so somebody responded, because this is Akbar's official account. He's had this since 2007.
How would we know? It's not verified.
I know. I'd say, Ben, like, just because it has the blue check mark before does not mean that it's, 100% indisputably true. But, like, this is going to make draft night a horror show. Thank God that ESPN is paying for people like Schefter and NFL Network is paying for people like Rappaport to have their blue check marks, because otherwise it'd just be a mess.
Or you could just watch the draft and not be spoiled on Twitter, but
that's lame. So Akbar tweets, breaking Derrick Henry on his way to the Eagles. Somebody tweets back and just tweets him back basically what Lucas said, except it says, you lying. And Akbar responds, just remember who told you first. Now, that was 2 days ago. And it was Akbar at 1:46 in the morning is responding to this person's tweet saying, just remember who told you first. You think he had maybe a scotch? I don't want to allege anything about Akbar. I don't know if he drinks or whatever.
Maybe he was getting off of an American Ninja Warrior broadcast.
It's entirely possible. You think he's just looking at his phone after coming off of taping. They don't tape those things at 1:46 a.m., though. I don't know. But either way, at 1:46 in the morning, he's replying to somebody on Twitter accusing him of lying, says, just remember who told you first. So I, immediately thrown into panic mode Saturday morning, start making calls, find out it's not true. That Derrick Henry is not getting traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, at least, and again, check back in this morning. As of this morning, that was indeed the case. I've not heard anything since we started the radio show 2 hours ago, so we'll see. But as of this morning, still not true that Derrick Henry not being traded to the Philadelphia Eagles.
And if you need more confirmation than from the guy that said Todd Downing would stay with the Titans this year, Jay Glazer also said, I have no knowledge of this. Ian Rappaport, everybody on the same page.
What's wrong with you? But also, that's fair. So I saw that. Or after I got off the phone, after, I thought that I was going to have to go into a full freak-out mode, that this, instead of this happening in the middle of the NFL draft like it did with AJ, that the entire week of the draft was going to be thrown into complete seventh circle of hell because, oh my God, not only are they trading Derek, but they're trading him to Philly? Stop. Well, it turns out, no, they're not at this point. So these things haven't gone away. And in fact, this weekend just kind of ramped them up because all of a sudden you see somebody with credibility, Jeremy Fowler, on national television Sunday morning on ESPN. And he's not talking about Derrick Henry, but he is talking about the availability of Ryan Tannehill. So this is the reporting from Jeremy Fowler on SportsCenter. It wasn't a tweet, so you can't go and search his Twitter timeline and have it come up. He's doing it the way that Glazer does, which is, I think, hugely credible, saving some of the reporting for the actual network, television network that employs him. Jeremy Fowler gets on television and says, Ryan Tannehill, he believes very, very much available right now. It's not exclusively because Aaron Rodgers hasn't been landed by the New York Jets as of Monday morning, or at least as of Sunday morning when Fowler was doing the reporting, but saying teams I talked to believe that Tannehill could be or is available via trade. He's got a $36 million cap hit. I add parenthetically 36.6. New general manager Rand Carthon is resetting this roster in a big way. They're making some moves. And so right now, they would need a replacement, though they would need somebody in place to take over for Ryan Tannehill if they moved him. Now, that has not been something that they have actively explored, but something that they remain open to. And we've known this for quite some time. Not about Derek, but about Tannehill. And again, I tell you, whether it's Byard, Henry, or Tannehill, those three specifically because of where they are, not just with cap hits, but also in the life cycle of their current contracts, that there has been no restructures or no extensions as of right now. And we'll ask Rand about this, I'm sure, in less than an hour. That, to me, indicates that all three are still available to a point. Now, I don't think they're going to act. I mean, by the way, this is not anything that's like breaking news. Ryan Tannehill, any player, except maybe now Jeff because he signed a long-term extension, it's not anything that's groundbreaking stuff. But again, it starts to stir people out there on social media. It starts to get you into a bit of panic mode. It starts to bring up the conversations. Well, is Malik Willis enough in this circumstance? What are they? Does that guarantee that they're trading up to number 3 overall? No. It just means that Ryan Tannehill continues to be available. I don't know if Jeremy Fowler saying it on TV gives it more credibility for you or not. I feel like we've been talking about Ryan Tannehill's availability for several months at this point, beyond just hypotheticals. The idea, yeah, he's an expiring contract. That is what it is. But as these things continue to kind of stir around in the week leading up to the draft, just be cognizant of where it's coming from, how much of it you've already heard and maybe just forgotten because 3 months of draft talk is a long time, and people's eyes glaze over, just like Lucas's do every time I bring up a quarterback in the draft for the third or fourth time any given show. Just because it's recent doesn't make it news. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. So, if they are to move Ryan Tannehill, what would that look like, and what would they need to have in place? We can talk about that hypothetical coming up next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson from 104.5 The Zone's morning show. Ramon, Kayla, and Will, and I am a proud participant in this year's Visionaries of the Year campaign for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and it is my privilege to be sitting here with Olivia. She is going through this battle right now at 10 years old. I know it has not been easy for you. You've been going through treatments and continue to. Why is it so very important for people to donate?
So we can get easier treatment options, and it will help the research of leukemia and lymphoma.
Yeah, and this is such a strong young lady, and every little bit will help. Like she said, the Dare to Dream campaign for safer treatments. This is not a disease that discriminates. It hits all ages. We've seen athletes that are dealing with that right now as we speak. But Olivia right here, she's going to win this battle, and we are here to help. So you can easily donate. Every dollar counts. Just click on that QR code at the top of Zone TV. You can just also go to 1045thezone.com.
We feel like Ryan Tannehill's time with the Titans is used up. I don't know about that. But Jeremy Fowler is saying on SportsCenter yesterday that he is available for trade. Now, that's not news, kids, but it is just kind of a reminder that Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, Kevin Byard, all potential for cap alleviation for the Tennessee Titans until such time as they are locked into the 2023 roster. It's a fluid situation. Now, I do think it's worth exploring what that hypothetical might look like if they were to move on from Ryan Tannehill. Because what's, I guess, for the two of you back there and for the audience, what would be the biggest concern? What would be the immediate concern for you if you found out today, let's paint the picture, Titans hypothetically in this scenario, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets isn't getting done. So the Jets are scrambling around. They're trying to figure out a quarterback situation. Okay, Tennessee's got one on an expiring deal. We don't have to marry ourselves to this guy long term. Maybe it's even a more long-term solution than they might have had with Aaron Rodgers. So the Jets trip and stumble over themselves. They botched Rodgers, but there's Tannehill sitting there for the right price. So you find out in this hypothetical that Ryan Tannehill's getting traded to the New York Jets, that he's going to go and reunite with Todd Downing and Keith Carter, and they're going to try and elevate things in the New York market and make that team a legitimate contender because it's got some fun pieces. We posed that very scenario to Diana Rossini on Friday. Asked Diana, because I hadn't heard anything about Ryan Tannehill, anything that's changed around Ryan Tannehill anyway, other than his contract situation continues to be what it is. I asked Diana, okay, well, have you heard anything that I haven't? Because you're literally down the street from Florham Park, where the Jets practice facility is. And this is what Diana Rossini of ESPN had to say.
Look, Ryan Tannehill being the backup plan to Aaron Rodgers in New York would probably sink the state of New Jersey, just because the hype is so big for Aaron. No knock on Ryan. But look, if there is an opportunity for Tennessee to move Ryan and be able to get some compensation for it, knowing the situation contractually that stands with him, I don't think it would be off the table. Well, I mean, I think it'd be bad business by Rand if he didn't at least talk to the Jets at some point here to say, hey, you're going to need a quarterback and a good one. And you know, we can debate, I'm sure, another day how we would define Ryan right now in his career, but Ryan's solid, man. Like he's good. That's just my opinion. I think he could step right into that Jets roster and they could win. You know, I think the challenges with staying in Tennessee are, you know, he certainly does not have those weapons. He does not have that defense. So it's a much different. I'd be curious if Ryan would love that trade, you know, knowing that what they look like up there or here in New York.
Okay, so she just painted a picture where it's beneficial, not only for New York, but for Ryan Tannehill. That Ryan Tannehill would have a better scenario in with the Jets than he would the Titans. Maybe that's the case. All right, so in this hypothetical, what is your first question? Like, what's the first thing that pops into the two of your heads when I say, all right, in this hypothetical, Ryan Tannehill is going to play for the New York Jets in 2023? What do you got to know?
What happened to Aaron Rodgers?
That's a good one. And where is he? Is he still a Packer?
Yeah, Ryan Tannehill is not a New York Jet unless Aaron Rodgers is not a New York Jet, which means if you're a Jets fan, something terrible has happened.
That's true. Yeah, can you? I mean, Diana literally said it. People would be sick to their stomachs if the consolation prize to an offseason where Aaron Rodgers said into a microphone or on a nationally broadcast program with Pat McAfee, my intention is to play for the Jets. Would it not be the most Jets fan suffering thing ever for him to not end up with the Jets after that? Would be tremendous.
My next question would be, what are the Titans going to do at quarterback?
Yeah. On a local level, who the hell is playing quarterback for this team?
Did this happen before or after the draft? Because if this happens after the draft and they don't get a quarterback, what are we doing? We running Malik Willis back?
Should we listen to Ian Rappaport talk about this?
Shall we please?
Well, it sounded to me, based on the several sources I've spoken with, that it was a phone conversation more than a text or sliding in someone's DMs. I guess at this point it'd be weird. Plus, I don't know if Brian Gutekunst is a big social media person. Joe Douglas probably also not. So a phone conversation really after a couple dormant weeks. And, the reality of this thing, Andrew, the Packers-Jets trade, which I think we all can assume is going to happen eventually, this was always going to be at the last moment, probably for both sides, to extract as much value as you possibly can right up against the deadline for when a deal had to be done. And the reason why this deal should be done this week, while both sides believe a deal will be done this week, is that it will likely include a second-round pick. That would be on Friday, so it has to, Tom, be done before Friday. And then, of course, there's the matter of Aaron Rodgers' contract. If it does get converted, if the Jets do create some salary cap space, that would probably have to be before the draft as well. All which is to say they are talking. It is moving in the right direction. It is not done, but the hope is at some point it will be.
So in this scenario, would you accept a world where if you gave up Ryan Tannehill, and this is a kind of careful what you wish for type of deal, if the exchange was Ryan Tannehill for Zach Wilson and draft compensation, would you be okay with that? Zach Wilson, who is a former second overall pick, you're kind of bargain hunting anyway with some of the signings that you've made. What if Rand Carthon had a high opinion of Zach Wilson coming out in the draft process?
I mean, my mom doesn't live here.
I'm good.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. You guys are the ones that have to be worried about it.
Do you think the women in Nashville are too young for Zach Wilson? Well, we get enough bachelorette parties in their 40s and 50s to perhaps satisfy the alleged appetites of Zach Wilson.
I do think this is a pretty out there scenario to be pitching, though, because we just heard Ian Rappaport say, headed in the right direction, looking to have something done, and having something done means Aaron Rodgers is a Jet, which would mean Ryan Tannehill will be a Titan.
Yeah, stepping this far is kind of like when you see a dude texted your girlfriend, and you're like, oh, she's cheating on me. We're definitely going to break up. Where am I going to live? Like, you're like, I guess we'd end up with Zach Wilson if she cheated on me.
Are you projecting?
No, you don't. No.
Are you sure?
I'm
think
positive.
okay?
No, I mean, the only guy texting my girlfriend is Lucas, so it's perfectly fine with me.
You even have Cheyenne's number? I don't have Cheyenne's number.
We all get together and do fun things.
KC is in Lewisburg up next. What's happening?
What's going on, my man? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, so honestly, I don't think that Jets thing is going to happen because, I think they're pretty sold on getting Aaron Rodgers or nothing. But if Tannehill was to get traded and if you could get a first-round pick, I don't see why not because, he's
and you could get a what, I'm sorry?
If you could get a first-round pick for him, I would definitely do that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's no scenario in which that happens.
If there's a possibility, I would definitely do that. But anything else besides that, why would you do that and not have a backup plan? Because they've already said they're not really high on Malik Willis. So unless you're having a high to mid-round first pick, I don't see what the point of moving on from him right now would be.
Well, they haven't said it, but or at least publicly. Thank you for the call, Casey. They haven't said publicly that they're out on Malik, but they're good on the Malik Willis experience. Now, Lucas sent Peter King's Football Morning in America column where it's Peter King's last mock draft, right? He has the Titans trading up to 3 for Stroud, but in the write-up on the mock draft cites just a general sense of being done with Malik Willis as part of the explanation for why a quarterback at Tennessee, whether it's 3, where Peter King has them trading up to, or 11, or somewhere else, why a quarterback makes sense. And that's something that, listen, you didn't need me to tell you. You didn't need Peter King to tell you. Maybe you need Rand Carthon or Mike Vrabel to tell you, but they're not going to publicly that they're done with Malik. But you knew as soon as they pulled him for Dobbs that had an expiration point. And the expiration point arrived much, much quicker than many of us might have imagined. Now, what you're probably getting back for Tannehill, here's the thing. it's not as clean as just, Ryan Tannehill makes a lot of sense for a team looking for a veteran solution at quarterback. What's the problem with trading for Ryan Tannehill right now? Can either of you tell me?
The contract?
The contract.
Yeah.
It's an expiring contract.
It's huge.
Well, no. I'm not even saying the money because they're not paying 36.6. It's like Derek. You're not paying $16 million against the cap if you trade for Derrick Henry. You're not paying 36.6 if you trade for Ryan Tannehill because it's really not that big a contract. No, but it is the contract. The contract's expiring. You only have him for a year. So your draft capital gets kneecapped. My guy, KC's talking about a first-round pick for Ryan Tannehill. Dude, you're getting a day 3 pick tops. Because whomever trades for Ryan Tannehill in this scenario, and again, these are reasons why it's so much more likely that Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback for the Titans this season than anything else, you probably have to sign Ryan Tannehill to an extension if you're trading for him. You're not just giving up draft capital for a rental quarterback like that.
I mean,
Tennessee kind of did it.
We've seen teams do that before. That would not be incredibly unusual. The Colts have been doing that since Andrew Luck retired.
I'm saying no. The Colts they still had years on Wentz's contract. They still had years on Matt Ryan's contract.
They ended up being rentals.
Sure. But I'm talking about, definitively that this guy is not under contract anymore in 2023. You're probably going to have to make sure that there is some security, not just for you, but for the value of the pick that you're trading to get him. It's not worth it to give up anything beyond day 3 draft capital to get a quarterback who's more done with his NFL career than not done with his NFL career, who does come with a price point that is above average, even if it's not the worst in the world. It's all kinds of different factors that go into this. So just because Tannehill's available doesn't mean it's likely. And these are the various factors that you have to consider when talking about any hypothetical Ryan Tannehill deals. 615-737-1045 is the number. I mean, I can't be saying anything that's a surprise to anybody about Malik, right? Like, you guys know that this is, it's not over. He's still on the roster, but there's not a viable path forward for him unless there is substantial progress made between now and August, whatever point. I think it's end of July, the report date for training camp. I don't think we have the exact report dates yet. But either way, like, there has to be substantial improvement between now and, let's say, September when the season starts for this guy to factor in a meaningful way. And everything that you hear, everything that you read around Malik Willis is that, yeah, they're pretty good on the Malik Willis experience.
Do you think he survives draft weekend?
Malik?
As a Titan.
As in he gets traded?
As in, yeah, that he would no longer be on the roster.
Oof. I just don't know what you could get for him.
That's my thing. Like, I don't know who would want him.
I feel like the most likely scenario of Malik not being a Titan at some point in the calendar year of 2023 is he's a practice squad player that just gets scooped up.
I think that's such a higher percentage chance of happening, practice squad, than a trade.
I mean, reclamation projects happen all the time. And we're talking about, in my mind, a team like the Cardinals, whose quarterback is going to be out probably the entire year, might want to take a swing on a quarterback who was a third-round pick, who the general manager knows very well, but that also might take them out of the running for him. That he
I honestly think Monty knowing Malik takes it more out of the running. Not knowing Malik as a person, knowing Malik as a player. I think that diminishes. I think known commodity there with Monty, I think that makes it worse.
But being a third-round quarterback, we've seen guys get chances elsewhere.
Sure.
And you're talking about just him being swept in a draft day deal,
sure,
right? Like some picks and Malik
Willis. They need to
Willis.
move up in the 6th round, or they want an extra pick here, and he's involved in a trade. Or do you think he survives the weekend?
He couldn't play backup quarterback last year.
Yeah, I bet he does.
I think he's their problem until such time as he's not. And that's a tough spot for him to be in so young in his career, but that's kind of the starting point for Malik Willis, is that it's like driving a new car off the lot. That value took a nosedive as soon as you took it out for a test drive in an NFL game.
Training camp and preseason is going to be huge for him.
Huge.
Even if it's all lost in the eyes of the Titans.
It's not just about the Titans anymore.
Just to get that next opportunity.
It's about somebody giving this dude a chance to play meaningful football.
Yeah,
because
show me some progress.
He was given a more meaningful chance, or a bigger sample size of meaningful football to try this out 4 starts is not a small, or excuse me, 3 starts, 8 total games that he participated in. That's not a small sample size. And ultimately, it wasn't enough to keep him on the field. Sam in Murfreesboro is next. Hey, Sam.
Hey, guys. I honestly think that at this point, the Titans roster is relatively barren of talent outside of Jeffrey Simmons. And the realization that we can compete with teams at the top of the AFC like the Chiefs or the Bills, that's just not going to happen this year. And if we prolong all of these contracts and these payouts, it's not going to happen in the next couple of years. So, I mean, let's run through some scenarios where you let Ryan Tannehill go. You trade him for a mid-round pick, hopefully a round 3, round 5 pick. You let Derrick Henry go along with his contract so you can actually utilize those cap figures at positions of more importance like the offensive line and rebuilding that offensive line, and almost have a 2 to 3 year plan instead of just looking to hopefully win 7 to 9 games in a best-case scenario this season. I mean, isn't that what we should be looking at as fans, is when you can get back to the AFC Championship instead of just maybe compete for a division title? I'll hang up and let you guys talk.
Thanks for the call, Sam. I mean, that's what their strategy looks like so far. It's just a bunch of it's how much money can I spread across how many more players just so I have more bodies on the roster than the ones that were failing me last year. What he's basically saying is, yeah, so focus on 2024. Financially, that's what their contract deals indicate is happening, that they're focusing on future seasons when they have all kinds of cap room to play with. But that doesn't keep them from being competitive this year. I don't know if they're going to be capable of winning a division in 2023. I have no idea. I have no idea what this team is going to look like on the field in September. I don't know what it's going to look like on the field when it's, halfway through the season in November. And as we're rounding into postseason chase time, whether they're going to be wild card, division winner, or not factoring in at all. It's April 24th. So these things can always take a turn for the unexpected, whether that's unexpectedly competitive or unexpectedly not. What they're doing financially, though, is exactly the kind of strategy that Sam laid out. They're not tying themselves long-term to these contracts. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, I mentioned Kevin Byard, Jeffrey Simmons. The only thing I know about the future of the Tennessee Titans this season, next season, or 3 seasons down the line is that Jeffrey Simmons is going to matter. I don't know who's going to be coaching. I don't know who's going to be general manager. I don't know who's going to be quarterback. I know that Jeffrey Simmons is probably going to be here for at least 3 years of that 4-year extension that he signed. Everything else is giving them the financial flexibility to have their books clean in 2024, which then they can spend the way. I mean, you don't want to see them win free agency in terms of number of big money contracts signed. That's not almost ever the recipe for success, not just in the immediate, but in long term. It's not a one-to-one computation that way. But their financial implications of this is something that's the way that they're operating with. Now, are they also saying, yeah, if we can keep money off the books for 24 but still win football games this year, then yeah, they're going to do it. It's not like it comes back to the tanking thing. They're not going to tank. They're not ever going to. Mike Vrabel is not going to get up there at a podium with us in 20 minutes. Rank Carthon is not going to get up there at the podium with us in 20 minutes and say, hey, guys, this draft, it really doesn't matter. We're just focused on the 2024 draft, really. That Caleb Williams guy, you like him? So do we. We like him a lot better than the quarterbacks in this draft class. Let's talk about that guy next.
I agree with you. They're not going to tank, but quit acting like that's what they'd be saying if they were.
I would love that. I would love that.
No tanking team in NFL history has ever come up and said, yeah, we're not really this year. It's, we're just hoping we get a top 5 pick.
I bet if you had an honest moment with Stephen Ross, the Dolphins owner, about Tua, you said, hey, Stephen, you like the quarterbacks in this year's draft? You'd be like, no, I'd rather tank for Tua.
Yeah, I bet if we had an honest moment, you could put that in front of anything with any NFL coach or general manager or owner.
Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. if you got them. Don't forget that press conference is going to be at 1 o'clock. So Blaine and Mickey will carry that live for you. And I'm going to haul on over to St. Thomas Sports Park to cover it for you as well. Polls are next. Getting ready to head over to St. Thomas Sports Park, or Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. Got to get the sponsorships right for everybody. Rand Carthon, Mike Vrabel, pre-draft press conference with Titans Media. So we'll have a lot of reports. I'm sure Blaine and Mickey will carry a portion of it, if not all of it, live on the air. Grizzlies and Lakers tonight going to be interesting. Grizz not able to get over L.A. in Game 3. Really, really pivotal matchup coming up tonight, and I know something that I want to continue to see a level of interest in. Just LeBron, as he gets older, as he's in his 20-plus seasons at this stage, the way that he is able to elevate himself. I love the Austin Reeves dynamic in this series as well, where people look at him like Duncan Robinson, like he's somebody who doesn't belong on a basketball court, and all of a sudden he's just out there playing like a dog. Been a lot of fun to watch that series. So Game 4 tonight between LA and Memphis. We got some polls?
Why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face. I don't know where the Batman is. Doesn't matter because here's Lucas Panzica on the Buck Rising Show. Update the polls, Lucas. Here we go.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. What is the most important question Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel have to answer today? Jabari says, who's on IR? I'll hang up and listen. Toby says, when are we busting out those Oiler throwbacks? Brett wants to know what shoes they're wearing to the draft. Pretty clear in all the replies that we're not going to get any actual answers today.
Is that a low bar? Is that a Mike Vrabel thing? That people just go into these things now assuming that they're not going to get any kind of tangible meaning? I really do think people like their eyes just glaze over in press conferences because press conferences are boring. I really do think they say more stuff than people give them credit for, though.
Yeah, but on draft week, I don't know that you're going to get anything other than like a Baltimore situation where there's things swirling around Lamar and every word is going to be dissected. The Titans don't have anything like that. Like, they're going to dismiss whatever comes up about Tannehill and Henry. But yeah, on draft week, during the season of lies and art of misconception and everything that we talk about, why would we get any answers? It wouldn't make any sense for us to get concrete answers.
No, but I mean, I guess my position is I don't want to go in with a defeatist attitude. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, get creative with it.
I still have to ask questions.
Trade rumors around Derrick Henry, fact or fiction? 68% say fiction.
68% of you are correct. We talked about that earlier in the show. There was no legitimacy as of this morning, when last I checked in, of Derrick Henry being traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. Could something always manifest in the draft? Could it happen, like A.J. Brown did in about 15 hours, I think is when that ultimately came down, the day of the first round? Sure, you always leave yourself aware for the possibility of that. But for Derrick, at least, not so fast.
Trade rumors around Ryan Tannehill, fact or fiction? 64% are going fact. I'm wondering if people are voting on this more about what they want to be fact versus fiction versus what they truly believe to be fact.
I think there's an emotional component that we're not accounting for in there. It just,
but it matches up. Like, Ryan Tannehill probably more available than Derrick Henry. They're both available. It's just a matter of the other party. Like, when the A.J. Brown thing was happening, it was the Titans that you needed to worry about. Are the Titans going to be willing to pay that contract? Are they going to be willing to pay A.J. what he wants?
Right.
Are they going to shop A.J.? This is more about what kind of interest would come from other parties about Tannehill or Henry, not about would the Titans be willing to offload those guys.
Yeah, and I would put it in the context that this way. You said that Derrick Henry or Ryan Tannehill is easier to trade than Derrick Henry. Is that the context that I understood? Because I don't think that Derrick Henry is I just think Derrick's less of a commodity than Tannehill is. I think
Tannehill has more value than Derrick Henry.
I think that Tannehill has substantially more value for another team than does Derrick Henry for another team that's not the Tennessee Titans. Like I said, until such time as I see a commitment to them beyond 2023, I'm assuming that all three of those players are available to move until such time as I see them trot out of the facility onto the practice field for training camp.
Yeah, available to move only goes so far, though, right? There needs to be, this is a two-way street. I'm sure Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel will be very open about those two situations later today. Does Tony Vitello own Vanderbilt baseball? 73% say yes.
I love that you're putting that out from my Twitter account just to bother the
What evidence do you have that I'm tweeting from your account? It's your account. It's your name on it. Why would I be tweeting from your account?
Well, now it doesn't even matter because I don't have a blue check mark. I'm just another one of you.
Those are the polls.
I don't think I could have landed the pretentiousness any better than I just did. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks to the boys for making it go. Thanks to Josh Pate and Tony Vitello for hanging out with us for a little bit. If you missed any of those interviews, they are available to you in the radio show's podcast feed. Speaking of podcasts, the Install tickets for the Install live taping with Greg Cosell. We're flying Greg down less than a month to do that event from the Hutton Hotel, where we're going to break down every single one of the Titans 2023 draft class with you guys in front of a live audience. Tickets are available right now at 1045thezone.com, so get them before they sell out because they are going fast. It's going to be a great time. Radio show at 10 tomorrow. If I don't talk to you then, you can catch me tonight with Bert on A to Z Sports Prime Time. See you guys.